Hi, so I'm Megan Slinky and I'm here presenting Miami house price evaluations, and let's begin. I'm sorry, it's a little awkward with this, but so these are some of the variables we went over, and I'll hold it closer so you can see. We spoke on cities, like the specific location of each house, the square footage, the lot size, the style from traditional ranch, townhome, a condo, split level, or like not listed. Those are all the variable types. We could have a garage by number of cars or no garage. Year built, so the entire year listed, not just like from 1900 on or from 2000 on, it's the entire year. Days can be a decimal of a day to hundreds of days on the market. Distance to elementary school, distance to a middle school, distance to a high school, latitude and longitude in degrees, and a description by realtor plus the price. There's one other variable that'll come into term later, come into play later in this presentation, called occurrence of home, because that's a variable that I created, and we'll talk more about that later. So this is the price on the heat map. The highest priced homes seem to be located by Miami Beach, as you can see right on the coastline. Those are some of the highest priced homes, and the lowest highest priced homes tend to be located inland. There are some exceptions to the rule. Some high-priced homes are inland and far from Miami Beach. However, when I looked into those variables, the specific data points, their descriptions state things such as like newly renovated, new appliances, and they're bigger than average or larger than the average in lot size and or square footage. So the next slide we go to is the home variable, as you can see right there. I put down some data points. So the range of it goes from like 0 to 4. So the home variable will be mentioned anywhere from 0 to 4 times in a single description. And we use the jump word counter extension to find all this data and then isolate it and tally it. So I had chosen this variable to see if the usage of home would be like more associated with a specific locale, as home has a better connotation than house does, and it also just means some different things, you know. Home was used on average a little under once in the 40 times that it was actually used. So there were 77 entries, 37 of those did not mention home at all, 40 did, and out of those 40, it would be mentioned anywhere from 1 to 4 times. So yeah. Then we'll go to backward selection. So backward selection is where you enter in all the variables in a stepwise program, and then by p-value, the program deselects which ones will end up in the final model. Now, for backward selection and forward selection, we ended up with the same exact model, but I can read over the equation so that you get it for the purpose of this presentation. It's y hat equals negative 42,911,634 plus 1011.49, and then that's for the x square footage variable, that's the slope, plus 20,970.68, that's the x slope for year built, and then subtract 367,430.97, that's the variable for elementary school, and the slope right there, and then added to it also is 368,601.12x, and that's the variable for high school. Those are the only variables that stayed. Everything else was rejected. Even my variable, the occurrence of home, was rejected because it just didn't have a large enough p-value. This is the forward selection. Once again, the exact same data, exact same equation, and then we move on to, so this is what we did. I put those variables chosen by the backward selection, the forward selection, into JUMP as just a multi-regression, multivariate model, and there's no reason I chose one particular way or over the other. I just chose the variables indicated by the two stepwise equations, and so we can see that this graph doesn't tell much, so let's move on to the next one. This is our residuals, and we see that less than 50% of the data is represented here, which is kind of scary, and the R-squared adjusted is even less. So let's look more. Let's look further. So this is the residual versus normal quantile plot, and this is the residual versus predicted price. Now, this slide and the next will help us identify whether or not this equation meets all the necessary assumptions for this kind of model. So although although there's not really any pattern here in the residual versus predicted plot, there's also like there's a lack of a funnel shape, which is good. But like in this one, for example, the normal quantile plot, it shows that some of the points are in range and some are not. So it's kind of worrisome that this may not be an assumption that is met. The assumption being that all the points fall within a normal range on a histogram. So let's check out this scatter plot. So these are the individual scatter plots. Now, only two of these, the top two, which is year built and square footage, show any sort of like linearization, like the linear shape, whereas the last two are just clustered in the middle, which is very worrisome that it might not meet the necessary assumption for the scatter plots. The trend is linear assumption. So a little bit worrisome there. So let's continue on. F-test evaluation. So we get a probability of 0.0001, which indicates that at least one of these variables contributes to the model, but we're not sure which one. So let's continue on. When we look at the individual probabilities, we see that the p-value for 1 is very low square footage, so that might be the one that was actually contributing to the model this entire time. But although none of the t-tests seem very significant, and the f-test is significant, there is still no collinearity because I searched further and I looked at the VIFs for each one and none of them seem to be out of whack or indicating anything. So my conclusion, I conclude that I don't think that this as it stands is a good model, although I do understand that we had limited data points with a large range between each of the values and the different sort of inputs we were getting. I think that I would rerun the model without elementary school and high school and see if we can get a better model out of that. And then if not, this model would suffice as it stands. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.